Hey guys, Mix here, and in today's video, as you can see, we are working on the MG. So last time you guys saw really anything like this, we got it running, but we came to realize that it has a really bad rod knock. So I tried a bunch of different things to try and hope that it wasn't rod knock, like changing the oil, putting an oil additive in it, checking all the valves, but it's pretty much almost certain that it's rod knock. So what I came to realize is that I can actually pull the oil pan without lifting up the engine at all or needing to take it out, because like the cross member and everything isn't in the way, so it seems. So as you guys can see, I have the car up on my little ramps. I have jack stands underneath as well in case these fail. This thing hasn't ran in probably 2-3 weeks, so all of the oil is in the oil pan right now. So it should be. So there's really nothing up top in the head or just kind of above the oil pan, and I want to keep it like that because when I'm just going to drain the oil real quick, even though it is brand new, so when I pull out the oil pan, it doesn't spill everywhere. We just went ahead and just pushed it on here. I didn't want to start it, one, because I don't want to do any more damage to this engine, and two, to keep all that oil in the pan, so when I do take off the oil pan, I don't have a ton of oil that went up top on top of the engine, leaked down constantly on me. That would just be annoying. But I have my creeper underneath here with no wheels, so that's just perfect. And basically, first thing I want to do is get under there and drain the oil. And then once I let that all drain, just put back on the drain plug and then begin taking off the bolts to get the oil pan off. And once the oil pan is off, hopefully I'll be able to see the connecting rods and try and find the loose one that's on the crankshaft. So guys, let's just give this a shot. Alright, so the oil just finished draining. I just threw back in the drain plug quick, but I do want to take a look at the oil, because although it didn't run on this for very long, I'd say probably about 30 minutes total, and this was brand new oil, and it honestly does not look very good whatsoever. It is pretty dang dark. It looks pretty dirty. Definitely looks like it's been in the car for like a couple thousand miles rather than like 30 minutes. I can't tell if that's all like metal dust and particles from like the rod bearing being shaved away, but we'll definitely, I think, be able to tell more once the oil pan is out. So I'm gonna give that a shot. Hopefully the bolts on the oil pan don't give me any issues, and hopefully once we get that off, we find the problem to why this engine sounds absolutely terrible. I'm expecting one of the rod bearings to be like way bad, and like I'll be able to move one side to side like immensely. Alrighty guys, so I got pretty much all of the bolts on the oil pan off, besides way up here. It is really tight between the little cross member and the front of the oil pan. So what I'm just trying to do is just get in there with the wrench. I wish I had one that was more offset so I could get it up in there, but I think if I mess around with it enough, I could get them off. So I think there's one here, and then one over there at the end. But once I get those off, hopefully I do, oil pan should drop down and we'll be able to see any of the carnage. So I'm just gonna work on this, and hopefully I'll catch you guys back once it's about to come off. So guys, I just got the last bolt out from the oil pan. It is the next day. It started raining last night, but I had like 5 left and they were all jammed up between this cross member and here. So I did go to Harbor Freight earlier today and get some offset wrenches, and that helped me get a few of them, and then a couple of them I had to use a hammer and a screwdriver to kind of hammer away at that lip. It's like 90 degrees out. The driveway is scorching. I just want to get this oil pan dropped, so shouldn't be any more bolts right now, just like the seal of the oil pan gasket holding it, and then we should be able to slide this thing out and see what it looks like underneath. And so I'm just gonna try and wipe this down a little bit so I can try and get a good grip on it, because I'm sure it's pretty good sealed on there, and all this paint is just falling off. Let's give this a shot. Oh, I forgot a bolt. Perfect. So I literally do not know how that one stuck by me. Hopefully I didn't bend the oil pan. But then I think that should be the last one. Literally do not know how I didn't see that one. There it is. There we go. Nice and easy. Alright. There is the bottom of the engine. Alright guys, so now right now, I want to feel some of the rods. See if I can feel any that are loose. Oh, yeah. There's our culprit right there. Jesus, that's bad. Oh, that one's a little loose also. This rebuild is really kind of just a last saving grace type thing. I just pulled the oil pan out into the sun and get ready for this. There is a ton, I mean a ton of huge metal shards in the oil pan. Let me drain out the rest of this oil so you can really see it. I don't want all the metal flakes to fall out, but now let's go back out into the sun. Oh yeah, that is real bad. Ooh, I have a bad feeling that this crank is gonna be destroyed. That is some of the worst carnage I've ever seen in real life. So guys, what I'm gonna try and do right now is try and take off the two connecting rods, you know, the caps, and then once they're off, assess the damage. Based on the oil pan, it's looking like there's a chance the crank is gonna be pretty banged up, and if it is, then well, I might have to pull out the engine and do a full rebuild, which I didn't want to do because I don't really have the supplies or the room or the space to really do that. But I've heard of people just cleaning up the crankshaft journals and then putting in new bearings, and they've been fine, which was my plan, but we're just gonna see. I'm gonna go back under there and, well, keep my fingers crossed and hope that they aren't completely destroyed. So guys, I just got the two rod caps off that were both, you know, had some play in them. And here they are over here. So this one is the bad one, the really bad one that we saw, the one closer to the front of the car. And this is just super, super thin. You can see there's actually a hole right in the middle there. So this is obviously really, really bad. The cap itself, actually, the surface isn't as bad as I thought it would be. It feels pretty smooth to the touch, surprisingly. And then this right here is the top one. This is the part that was basically sitting just like that against the connecting rod itself. And I know that there's supposed to be like one hole usually for oil, but these center holes kind of look like that they were burnt through. Like that right there doesn't look like factory. And then this is the second one. This one is not actually that bad. I did feel a little bit of play in it, so I did go ahead and take it out. It's still pretty thick, smooth to touch. Doesn't really have any wear marks it really seems to see that are out of the ordinary. And then the same goes for the one that's on top of the crank. I just left it in there because it spun around when I released this out, but it's like sucked against like the rod itself because of the oil and it's hard to grab, but I can see it. It looks pretty much exactly just like this, so I'm not really too worried about that piece. On the crank itself, this is the one that was really bad. I mean, it feels smooth, but it doesn't feel that even. Like, it almost feels like over here is lower, or smaller in diameter, I should say, than over here. And then over here, you can see there's that bearing that looks pretty normal. Oh, sweet, it just popped out. But like I was just saying, it looks pretty much exactly the same as the other one. And the crank over here does actually look and feel pretty good, so I'm pretty happy about that. But this doesn't feel the greatest. That's what I'm a little worried about. So what I think I'm just gonna do is just order all new bearings. They are really cheap, and I think I'm just gonna throw them all in, all new bearings all around, and just see what happens. Worst comes to worst, it starts knocking again. I mean, overall, this was somewhat easy. The hardest thing was taking off the oil pan, just those top 4 or 5 bolts that were on top of the cross member. That was the hardest thing, but it wasn't impossible. So I think literally the worst that happens is it spins a rod again. Then I know that this engine will actually have to get pulled and completely gone through with the crank. Literally take everything out and refinish everything. Just my biggest fear is just with that crank, but I mean, the cap really feels decent. It feels fine. I mean, you can see some stress marks there, but it feels just very smooth to the touch. So I think I'm just gonna send it. I'm probably just gonna try and clean up that crank a little bit and just see what happens, to be honest. Do like a $40 rebuild and just cross my fingers. And like I said, worst comes to worst, it spins the rod again, starts rod knocking, then I know for sure that I have to pull out the engine or just do an engine swap or anything like that. Just doing a little bit of experiment here. There's really no rush for me on getting this thing running, but I'm gonna start getting some parts ordered. Usually they do all come from England, so I'll catch you guys back once we have those parts, and well, I'm gonna be getting ready to install them. Alrighty guys, so we are back here about a week later, and I just got the new parts in the mail. I ended up just getting a whole gasket set because they didn't just have the oil pan gasket, and they gave me a pretty good deal, so I figured why not. And I also got the new rod bearings. So I already brought out the tools and everything, and basically what we're going to start doing is just basically starting to piece this back together and hope that I'll be able to just throw in new rod bearings and, well, everything will be all right. I have a feeling that it might not work and that the crank will probably have to be taken out and either machined or just get a whole new one, but honestly, this is easy enough and it's worth it. So I do have the oil pan on right now. It's literally just like one bolt in there, just because it's been a week. I don't want like moisture and stuff getting in there and surface rusting everything. So I'm just gonna pop that off right now, and then I'm just gonna go ahead. I'll probably clean up the crank a little bit, try and clean up the caps. And they really aren't in bad shape. This is the bad one. It's really smooth actually. But once I get these all cleaned up, gotta put in the new bearings and then torque it down to spec. And then the fun part, getting on the oil pan, but should be a lot easier now because before on the oil pan, you know, there were like lips and I had to hit it with the hammer, screwdriver to get like the socket in there. So it should be a little bit easier now. But then once that's all done, I guess put oil in it. I'm probably gonna crank it over by hand just to kind of feel and see. And even if it is bad, if I put in new bearings and it's still shaky, I'm not even gonna bother anymore at that point, so we'll just see. But with that being said, let's go ahead and try to revive this MGB. Alrighty guys, so it was going very well, but I have some bad news. So this is the side that wasn't too bad. It had just the slightest movement in it before. This is pretty much tightened down. So it turns out that the bearings that were in this were not stock bearings. I ordered OEM size stock bearings, thinking that this thing has probably never been rebuilt, but it does have oversized bearings. And I was worried about this because on the old bearings, this is one of the old bearings, it says right up top 030. There was no decimal point in front of it, so I wasn't really thinking that that was like a size thing. But now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably, you know, 0.30 oversized. So these bearings are not going to work, which sucks because getting those on were pretty hard. But at least I know for next time, because I am going to just go ahead and order oversized ones. After I do some research and just make sure, I might honestly just try and like get the old ones measured. But I am going to go ahead and just try and find the right ones, because obviously those are not the right size, because before I took off the old one, it wasn't moving that much, and that was like one of the good ones. So I'm going to figure this out, but I do think I am going to be ending off this video here. I was hoping to do the first start on it, but at least we were able to find the problem and begin just working at it and kind of just doing like a Hail Mary to try and do an in-car rebuild. And like I said before, this may seem like I'm taking the easy way out, but this is just worth a shot instead of, you know, tearing apart everything and ripping out the engine just to see if it will fix it. So that sucks. I can't even return them, but honestly, they're cheap enough. But it is kind of interesting that it has been rebuilt before, because those are OEM size 1974 MGB for this engine rod bearings, and they're too small. But anyway, guys, I'm going to be ending off this video here. Like I said before, I'm going to be doing some research to make sure that I do get the right rod bearings this time. And next time, we hopefully will be putting those in and then trying the first start if everything goes to plan. But anyway, guys, follow my social medias. They will be on the outro of this video. Instagram and Snapchat I use the most. But thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, comment, tell your friends about the channel.